What's happening, fellas? Today, I'm going to break down a couple things that have been on my mind. We are just finishing up our rookie draft guide version 1.0. That'll be out on Thursday. And there's two prospects in this draft that really scare the crap out of me. And I'm going to go through them and kind of almost have a debate with myself. I mean, feel free if you guys have any things to add or if you feel like you need to disagree with anything, feel free to leave it in the comments. But these two top prospects are going extremely high in rookie drafts. And both of them, I feel like, are going to either make or break kind of the strength of this class. And both of them, could be huge, big-time rookie contributors. But both of them could also bust and kind of flame out here. So the two prospects that I'm going to break down in today's video are Luther Burden, wide receiver of Missouri, and Shedeur Sanders, quarterback of Colorado. Obviously, in Superflex drafts, he's going to be very valuable. One quarterback drafts, not so much. But I'm going to go through both of them and kind of give you the pros and cons of each and why they scare me. So Luther Burden, wide receiver of the Missouri Tigers, the best comparable prospects in the prospect model for Luther Burden, and I'll break this down more later in the week when I go through the wide receivers to target and avoid. I did the running back one already, and you guys really seem to enjoy that. His best comparable prospects are DJ Moore and Laviska Shenault. And to me, this is the perfect representation of Luther Burden, the player, that those are his two comps, because both of these guys are a wide range of outcomes. One of them is a stud NFL wide receiver. One guy's like a special teamer in the NFL. And that's, to me, what Luther Burden represents. So I'm going to give you the case for why he could be either guy. Why he could be DJ Moore, and some of the similarities of the prospect profile is that he dominated targets as a sophomore. As a 19-year-old, 31.7% of his team's looks in the SEC as a true sophomore in 2023. Like DJ Moore also, his quarterback play was a huge hindrance to his profile. When we watched DJ Moore coming out of the draft in 2018, we all remember that he had like 9 quarterbacks at Maryland, and nobody knew, who the hell these guys were. And DJ Moore was just the lone bright spot on this terrible, terrible offense, and it left a lot to be desired on his profile to some degree. But all of the market share numbers were there for DJ Moore. All of the efficiency numbers were there for DJ Moore. And when you watch the tape, you were like, this dude is talented. He just has terrible quarterback play. That's all there for Burden as well. Yards per team pass attempt of 3.2 in 2023, 20.3 PPR points per game in his best season, breakout age of 19.6, 3.29 yards per route run in 2023, career targets per route run of 27.95%. All of those numbers that I just mentioned are from the prospect model, and they're all like 70th plus percentile marks that Luther Burden hits. So he has a very good analytical profile. It's like, I think 32% out of the 40% he can totally earn in the prospect model. He's also built a lot like DJ Moore, and play style wise, they're very similar as well. You got a 6 foot, 210 pound DJ Moore, a 5'11", 208 pound Luther Burden. I think Moore tested pretty well. He ended up running, high 4.4s or whatever, jumped really well. Agility drills really good. I think the same is true for Luther Burden. He's probably going to have, a 9+ RAS score or something like that. He plays tough on tape. He can break tackles. He's explosive as hell. Like DJ Moore, all of those things are true for him. Even though the route tree wasn't fully developed at the University of Missouri, which is very, very true of Luther Burden, and it was also true of DJ Moore as well, you saw what it looked like when he was running a real NFL route. You saw the glimpses of, you put this guy one-on-one in man coverage, let him run a go ball, you could see what he can do. You can see him run a dig over the middle of the field. You could see what he can do at the next level. Now, that's all the good with Luther Burden. So why he scares the shit out of me is this. Because there's a lot of similarities to Laviska Shenault's prospect profile as well. And Laviska Shenault, for what it's worth, was actually a very solid prospect. He just didn't work out. Sometimes solid prospects don't work out in the NFL. 73.2% of his routes from the slot. That is what Burden played in college. DJ Moore and Laviska Shenault, you might assume, played in the slot in college. No, they were sub 40% non-slot receivers. They played on the outside most of the time, even though specifically with Shenault, many people projected that he would be a slot receiver in the NFL, just like a lot of people are projecting that Burden will be a slot receiver in the NFL, although he actually did play in the slot 73.2% of the time. Shenault, similar to Burden, also peaked as a sophomore. His sophomore season was really, really good. 90.1 PFF grade in 2018, 1,019 receiving yards, 6 touchdowns, had a 26% target share. Both Luther Burden and Laviska Shenault were efficient on their targets, and a lot of that was due to like manufactured touches and just kind of being a more explosive athlete than a lot of the players on the field with them. It's like, You go back and watch Laviska Shenault's highlights, a lot of it is like, quick screens, drag routes, curl routes, whatever, and then he just kind of takes it to the house, or he does what he does after the catch. 67% of Laviska Shenault's targets coming out of college in his best season were sub 9 yards. So they were either behind the line of scrimmage or sub 9 yards. 59% of Luther Burden's were in 2023 sub 9 yards, and 64% in 2024. So both of these guys kind of had a similar usage profile. Both quarterbacks for each team both wide receivers, from each team suffered from really, really bad quarterback play in their final junior season, draft eligible season. We made excuses for Laviska Shenault, and we're doing the same thing for Burden. He had bad quarterback play. That's why he didn't produce. They didn't use him correctly. We said all this stuff for Laviska Shenault as well. So this is why I'm drawing parallels to both players. A UDFA by the name of Tony Brown for Colorado in 2019 outproduced Laviska Shenault, or produced very similar to Laviska Shenault, 707 yards, 5 touchdowns, alongside Shenault, who had like 750 yards and like 4 touchdowns his final year. So basically this like UDFA player matched his production, although going into his junior season, we thought he was going to have yet another big time season, 1,000+ yards, 13 touchdowns, whatever, and he got basically paced in production by a UDFA. The same thing happened to Missouri's Luther Burden, a future UDFA by the name of Theo Weiss Jr., who's a 5-year redshirt senior, not a very good prospect at all. He is invited to the NFL Scouting Combine this year, but he actually outproduced Luther Burden, 884 yards to 676, 89 targets to 80 targets. Now, again, many film watchers will claim that Luther Burden wasn't used correctly, Luther Burden did this well, and he wasn't asked to do it, whatever. My point is this. He's uber talented. He has so much upside. If he can develop into the player he's capable of being, we could have been looking at, Malik Neighbors 2.0. We could have been looking at maybe even like a Garrett Wilson level separator. But do not get it twisted. The reason Luther Burden scares the shit out of me is because his floor is very, very low with this profile. In the NFL, think of the best archetypes to come into the league. You want prototypical X-style wide receivers. If they're not a prototypical X-style wide receiver, you want a guy who can run routes at a high level. You want a guy with good speed, good athleticism. You want a guy who can maybe play a big slot role like a Chris Godwin potentially. The role that Luther Burden plays, where you need like manufactured touches and you play in the slot and you can't really create much on your own. I'm not saying he can't do that. I'm just saying that's the role he played in college. That's not very conducive to fantasy production. There's only one Deebo Samuel. Everyone will say, well, what about Deebo Samuel? There's only one Deebo Samuel. For every Deebo Samuel type of prospect, we have Malachi Corley, Laviska Shenault, Rondale Moore, Sky Moore, guys that needed manufactured production in college and didn't get it in the NFL. Their NFL teams decided, hey, you're not actually better than everybody on our roster, so we're not going to feed you 45 targets, 0 to 9 yards every single season the way that you got fed in college. So that's why Luther Burden scares the shit out of me. I'm just saying, keep in mind that when people are drafting him, 103, 104, 105, he is very, very landing spot dependent. I think some of the best landing spots he could go to are like the Rams, for example, who could use him as like a yak threat or whatever. But if he goes to, like, I'm just trying to think of a team that wouldn't really use him correctly. If he went to like the Browns and, the coaching staff was going to use him the way they, maybe use Jerry Jeudy already, and he's asked to run like Z receiver and run on the outside and win one-on-one man coverage, I just don't know if he's ready to do that yet. So that's why Luther Burden scares me. Again, agree or disagree in the comments section down below. I think it's important to have these conversations about these prospects because too often we always talk about the upside scenario and we don't talk about the downside scenario. The downside scenario is that he is Laviska Shenault 2.0, and to me that's just a stone cold fact. The FSC prospect model backs that up. So prospect number 2 that scares the crap out of me is Shedeur Sanders, quarterback of Colorado. Now, I've heard a litany of comps for Shedeur Sanders, anywhere from Joe Burrow, CJ Stroud, some of these really, really high-end prospect comparisons. I saw somebody comparing with Drew Brees as well. And then I've seen more kind of middle-of-the-road prospect comparisons. Some people have said he's Tua Tagovailoa, Geno Smith, Michael Penix, somebody like that. Here's what Shedeur Sanders does extremely well. And I'm going to break down kind of his pros and cons as well and why I think he scares the crap out of me. He is extremely accurate, led the NCAA this year in completion percentage, and among quarterbacks in the 2025 class, his 88.16% catchable pass rate, so how many of his targets were catchable, is first in the class, and it ranks 2.5% higher than the collegiate averages of my top 20 dynasty quarterbacks when they were in college. So Josh Allen, Lamar, Mahomes, Tua, Trevor Lawrence, Burrow, Justin Herbert, all those guys, when they were in college, their collegiate averages were about 86% catchable pass rate. Shedeur's up at 88.16%. I think he also sees the field extremely well, finding open receivers, playing within structure, absolutely surgical when he's in rhythm. You get him 3-step drop, top of his drop, let him fire the ball. He is going to be in rhythm. He's going to dice you up. And that is precisely, I think, why people call him like Drew Brees or Joe Burrow or, CJ Stroud on the high end of the comps here, is because he has that quality to him. He throws a great deep ball as well. I think he throws a very accurate deep ball. He has good ball placement on his deep ball, back shoulder fades, whatever you got to do to get the ball closest to your receiver away from the defender. Shedeur Sanders does that extremely well. And generally, I think he makes good decisions with the football too. He didn't have a lot of interceptions in college, 1.3% turnover-worthy play rate. He took care of the football from like a fumble perspective too. Third lowest turnover-worthy play rate in college football. To me, his ceiling is Tua Tagovailoa. I think that's, if he hits his ceiling, that's who he can end up being. Why he scares me is this. 41 sacks is what he took last year in college football. That was first in the NCAA. Now, quarterback sacks are more of an indictment on the quarterback than they are on the offensive line. Now, I'm not saying his offensive line was good. It wasn't. But when you hold the ball like Shedeur Sanders holds the ball, you're going to get sacked a lot. And unlike Tua Tagovailoa or Jared Goff or Geno Smith or even CJ Stroud or Dak or Joe Burrow, whoever you want to compare him to, he doesn't know when to not give up on a play. He kind of just holds the ball, tries to create, and he doesn't have the tools to do that. He's not Caleb Williams. He's not Jaden Daniels. He's not Lamar Jackson. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He doesn't have the ability to extend plays like those guys do. And even Caleb Williams, who I think has way better tools in this area, struggled with that when he transitioned into the NFL. And I think as he gets older and as he gets more experience, he'll get better at that. But when you have very average to probably below average tools when it comes to his arm, I would rank it probably among the bottom 5 to 10 NFL starting quarterbacks right now. It's not even as good of an arm as Joe Burrow's is, who got a lot of shit for his arm coming out of school. Tua Tagovailoa, who also got some crap for his arm. Deshaun Watson, when he was coming out of school, people talked about his velocity not being there. All of their arms are better than Shedeur Sanders, in my opinion. His mobility and size are fine. They're average. They're adequate. He's not 6'6". He's not 240 pounds. He's not going to run in the 4.4s. He's got average tools, most likely. His arm velocity, when he's got to throw, an opposite hash out route, for example, isn't there. It's not to the level of some of the best quarterbacks in the league, the arm talent that they have. His ability to throw on the move is fine. It's adequate. It's not crazy good. The arm angles that he can throw at, it's fine. It's adequate. It's not crazy good. Among NFL starting quarterbacks, you have an uphill battle to become an elite fantasy quarterback when you don't have those tools. And this is what scares me the most. When you watched Bo Nix last year, or when you watched Michael Penix last year, for example, they were aware of their limitations as a player, as an arm talent, whatever. They did not pretend that they had elite creativity, elite pocket mobility, elite, size or whatever. It's like Shedeur Sanders thinks he's a much better quarterback than he is, and he doesn't know, hey, I'm the type of quarterback that needs to slice and dice, get the ball out on time, get the ball to my playmakers, and continue on my merry way. Jared Goff knows that he can't create plays. Tua Tagovailoa knows that he can't create plays like Patrick Mahomes. That's good. That's what you want out of a quarterback of this, archetype. You want them to know exactly what their limitations are, get the ball to their playmakers when they can. We also have heard some rumblings that he might have some character issues, might have some attitude issues. I'm not going to ding him too hard for that stuff because I don't know if they're true or not. I've never met the guy, but it all does compound with the fact that maybe this other stuff adds up in addition to a character concern. So do I think he's going to hit big in the NFL? If Shedeur Sanders hits, is he going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL? I don't think so. I think if he hits, he's going to be a Tua, maybe a Jordan Love, maybe somebody like that. I don't think he has the ceiling that CJ Stroud has. I don't think he has the ceiling that Joe Burrow has. Definitely not the Drew Brees, some of the comps that I've seen for him. If it happens really on in his career, maybe he could crack the top 12 to 15 dynasty quarterbacks, but I think if he busts, which he is a boomer bust prospect in my opinion, it's going to be in colossal fashion. And for me, he's a guy that I'm probably out on because most people with quarterback prospects in Superflex drafts, the second you get draft capital, that's all that matters. We all suck at evaluating quarterbacks. I get it. but I'm still going to try anyways. I'm still going to stick to my conviction here. I don't think Shedeur Sanders is a universal scheme fit. I don't think he's a very good prospect from a fantasy perspective because he hasn't run all that much, doesn't have that great of tools. So if people are going to spend the 103, 104, 105, 106, wherever the pick is, on Shedeur Sanders with the assumption that he's going to go top 5 in the NFL draft, I'm probably out, because if I think about it realistically, my QB 20, 21, and 22 in fantasy, in Dynasty right now, are Tua Tagovailoa, J.J. McCarthy, and Michael Penix. I don't think I would put Shedeur Sanders over any of those guys. And for me to spend like the 103 on a guy, he needs to be ahead of those dudes. Can you say right now that Shedeur Sanders will be valued over those guys in Dynasty leagues on day one? I personally would not take him over those guys given the warts that he has with his film and the warts that he has with his profile. So why would I spend the 104 or the 105 or whatever on this quarterback? I can promise you there's going to be 5 running backs out of this class that are damn near RB1s in Dynasty the second they get drafted. I can promise you there's a couple wide receivers in this class that'll be top 24 guys the second they get drafted. A few guys that might be top 6, top 8 Dynasty tight ends the second they get drafted. To me, it's just hard to justify. In my mind, we all know, the NFL has told us, the media has told us, we all know watching college football, this is a down quarterback class. We should not be valuing these quarterbacks up near 103, 104, 105 ahead of really good wide receiver and running back and tight end prospects, in my opinion. I think this should be closer to what we were doing in 2022, where Kenny Pickett was the QB1. He got first-round draft capital, and he was like the 109, 110 in rookie drafts. And you can even argue that was too high based on what he ended up doing. So, yes, you got to respect the draft capital with the quarterback position, but we were not taking Kenny Pickett over Chris Olave and Jameson Williams, let alone the top guys like Garrett Wilson and Drake London and Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker that year. So, for me, I look at Shedeur Sanders. This is a guy I want at the late first round. My quarterback 1 in this class is Cam Ward. And Cam Ward, to me, the big difference between the two of them, because I think they're about equally as risky, the big difference is that Cam Ward has a bigger arm, more mobile, more creative, has the upside to be a Dynasty QB1 after a great rookie season, whereas Shedeur Sanders, I just don't think does. I don't think his play style is very conducive to fantasy production, so that's why he scares the crap out of me. It feels like we're swinging for a single or a double, and we could strike out looking. You know what I mean? Like, that's where I'm at with Shedeur Sanders, and Luther Burden at least has a super high ceiling, so I'm a little bit more willing to swing on somebody like him. Because he could end up being a really, really stud factor wide receiver in the NFL. So this is just kind of a wrap session that I wanted to do. 2 prospects that scared me. Let me know in the comment section down below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? A lot of people maybe aren't raising these concerns about these prospects. To me, somebody commented on our video the other day that Danny was talking too much about the upside scenarios of prospects and not enough about the downside scenarios. And I think that comment really resonated with me, because I'm like, I think that's true of a lot of people sometimes. We all think about, what does it look like when this guy hits? What does it look like when he misses is the thing that we sometimes forget about. So that's why I wanted to kind of talk about 2 guys that I think are a little bit boomer bust, a little bit more coin flip prospects in this class. And again, anything prospect related, our draft guide, rookie rankings, dynasty rankings, prospect model, everything available on flockfantasy.com. Promo code FSE is linked down below in the description of this video, in the pinned comment of this video. If you want to sign up annually over on Flock Fantasy, you get a free team review, a free buy, sell, hold report, and you'll get an email when you sign up over there with instructions on how to redeem those things. So definitely check that out if you guys are interested. But with that being said, peace out. I'll talk to you soon.